would begin in the 21st century, a conflict between the nations of Earth that would come to be called the Great War. The reason behind this war is unknown, however I think it's reasonable to assume that it was a direct result of human greed and the rapidly diminishing resources of our planet. Directly preceding this, the government of the Earth would come together to form what is known as the Earth Directorate. This entity would arbitrate international disputes as well as intercorporate disputes. Running parallel to this, the field of science would experience unprecedented breakthroughs in space exploration. They would develop the skip drive. This would allow intergalactic travel at speeds faster than the speed of light for the first time. This would lead to countless corporations fleeing the planet, taking to the stars in search of new worlds to colonize. The Earth Directorate, which is the biggest backer of the space exploration craze, begins to traverse the stars, offering off eligible star systems, those rich in resources or those in the Goldilocks zones of their respective systems, to the highest bidder. The Goldilocks zone is used to describe planets that are in a similar position to Earth in terms of their position from their suns. If they're too far away, they'll end up frozen wastelands. Too close, and they'll be boiling. The Earth Directorate preferred planets that were in this perfect position, capable of sustaining life. 200 years later, 10 of the biggest corporations would come together and form a mega company, Halcyon Holdings Corporation, or HHC. They did this with a primary goal of pooling their vast resources together to acquire the remote star system of Halcyon. Halcyon would begin to board their brand new colony ship, the GroundBreaker, and it would begin a decade-long journey through the cosmos to the Halcyon star system. Upon arriving at their destination, they would use their advanced technologies in an attempt to terraform the first moon of Terra 1. This would ultimately prove to be a fruitless effort and lead to the ecosystem of the planet becoming volatile as a direct result. This would cause the crew aboard the Groundbreaker to abandon any hope of colonizing the moon. Deeming it as uninhabitable, the mega conglomerate would move on to the moon Terra 2, hoping to learn from the initial failures. Here, they would successfully terraform the majority of the surface of Terra 2. Unfortunately, this is where greed would rear its ugly head once again, as one of the 10 corporations making up the HHC would break off, laying claim to the volatile moon of Terra 1. They would do this by exploiting a legal loophole of their chartered agreement with the rest of the conglomerate. They would officially rebrand the moon of Terra 1 to Monarch, and rename themselves Monarch Stellar Industries. Infuriated by the utter betrayal, the remaining Halcyon Holdings Corporation would invoke the Hazard Clause on Monarch 1. This would force all companies to abandon the moon, placing it under an indefinite embargo. In 2285, the second of Halcyon's colony ships, the Hope, would depart Earth and begin to make the same decade-long journeys towards their new homes. It would be responsible for carrying hundreds of thousands of hopeful citizens. Almost the entirety of the ship's occupants would be put into cryogenic bays to await their 12-year trip. Only 24 crew members would stay awake to maintain the ship's vital systems during its long voyage. 9 years later, 2294, disaster would strike. Real quick, if you guys are enjoying the episode, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for a lot more lore content. I cover both the Outer Worlds as well as Fallout. So if you're interested in getting early access to all my content, as well as members-only episodes once a month, or even playing alongside us here at Vault Zero on a custom world in Fallout 76, be sure to check out my Patreon. I'll link it down in the comments. We do have a free tier, that you can just check out news that's going on in the channel, as well as just chat. The skip drive of the Hope would malfunction. Without its capabilities, it would take 25 additional years to reach the Halcyon star system. The projected date of arrival was now 2320, and at this point, there were only enough rations left aboard to feed the ship's crew for another year. The looming threat of starvation became a very startling reality. The captain's wife, Donna Hunt, would begin diligently trying to get vegetables like tomatoes to grow in the ship's botanical wing. This would ultimately fail. Desperate for a solution, the chief engineer, Frank Nalda, would begin secretly removing sleeping passengers from their cryo bays and cannibalizing them. Captain Hunt would be unaware of this dark truth until it was revealed to him by Frank himself. He did this in the hopes that the captain would see reason and agree with his barbaric actions. In response, however, Frank Nola will be thrown into the brig. This would not solve the problem for long, however. Frank had gathered the support of the majority of the crew, including the ship's medical officer, Alexei Volka, who agreed that this was the only plausible course of action in which they were to be able to survive. She attempts to persuade Captain Hunt that this is a rational plan, and that according to her calculations, surviving the next 26 years would mean they would need to eat 10,000 colonists. Captain Hunt is horrified. He couldn't bring himself to eat even one bite of human flesh, but to eat over 10,000 innocent human beings, that was a thought he could not bear. Starvation would continue to worsen, and those loyalty to the captain would dwindle to one, his wife, with Frank Nolda being freed from the ship's brig by his loyal followers. Frank would then try to sway the only remaining loyal person to Captain Hunt to his side. He would offer a piece of human flesh to Donna herself. She reluctantly would try the flesh and state that it was delicious. However, she quickly followed that she would not become a murderer, much less a cannibal. Unable to live with the guilt of consuming human flesh, and not wanting to continue a slow, agonizing death, she was left with what felt like the only logical solution. She would take her own life. With the remaining crew members firmly opposed to Captain Hunt's ideologies, they would begin openly rebelling. Captain Hunt would lock himself inside his quarters and seal the rest of the ship off to prevent the remaining crew members from killing and cannibalizing anyone else. Frank and his crew would then make use of the mining equipment to force open the doors on the hibernation wing. This in turn would cause Captain Hunt to leave the safety of his quarters, and left with no alternative, he would be forced to confront Frank. It is unknown what happened in the hibernation wing. The results were that the remainder of the Hope's crew ended up dead. In 2030, Hope arrived in the Halcyon star system. The HHC was made aware, but at this point the passengers had been in cryo for far too long, it'd be impossible to revive them. In an attempt to cover up the tragedy, they would quietly move the Hope just above the orbit of the planet of Typhon, planning to abandon the colony ship. A scientist working with the board named Phineas Wells uncovers the truth of what has happened aboard the Hope colony ship, and contrary to his colleagues, he believes that through experimentation and science, the colonists can be successfully revived. The board, however, refuses to pour their resources into what they deem to be a lost cause. Going against the wishes of the board, Phineas would secretly transfer colonists out of the Hope and conduct experimentations in an attempt to successfully revive them. Finally, after 35 years of experimentation, he would discover that flash-frozen organic flesh can revert to its original state when introduced to a tincture of dimethyl sulfoxide. This is an extremely rare compound, and being branded a criminal through his actions, Phineas was incapable of recovering more on his own. Fortunately, in May of 2355, he would have another breakthrough. He would successfully recover and revive a colonist from aboard the colony ship Hope. It's his plan that, along with a stranger, he can acquire more of the elusive compound and save those remaining in stasis aboard the ship. However, at this point, the board has been made aware of Phineas' location. They're onto him, surrounding him every turn. We are his only hope, and the hope of the humans left aboard the colony ship. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. If you did, make sure you smash that like button, that sub, and catch us next time as we dive into more Outer Worlds lore.